What's going on, everybody? It is Chris Aiken from Aftershocks, and just wanted to remind you before we give you this next great interview that you should be subscribed to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. That is the web address. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe. Everything you need to do to catch not only this episode, but everything that we've done in the past. It's all over there on the CMS Podcast Network, as well as great shows from the Classic Metal Show, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me, and of course, Aftershocks TV. So sign up today and you will never be without entertainment again. All right, enough of this. Let me give you the interview you came here to see. It is Aftershocks right here on Aftershocks TV, and joining us today to talk about his brand new book, Son of a Milkman, My Crazy Life with Tesla, the crazy bassist of Tesla himself, Mr. Brian Weed. Brian, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. It's good to speak to you once again, man. It's been, for me and you, it's been a while, man. I always end up talking to Frank or to Jeff. I don't think I've talked to you since, geez, probably 2006 or 7, one of those tours, man. So it's been a little while, but it's good to talk to you again, man.
Wow, I didn't realize it's been so long.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but it, not because you guys haven't been busy. Obviously, Tesla stays one of the busiest bands in the land, and not shocking at all that even with the pandemic doesn't stop you from putting out some new product. This time, of course, being your brand new book, Son of a Milkman.
Yep. It's finally, I've been talking about it for a few years. It's finally come to fruition and it's out.
Absolutely, man. Well, Brian, let's talk about it a little bit. I loved it. I'm loving it. I'll put it that way. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it.
Okay, good. So you are reading it.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff that's really fascinating to me, and we'll get into some of that stuff. But before I even get there, I write books myself. I've written 6, so I understand.
Wow, cool.
I understand not only the process of writing books, but when you put stuff out there that people are going to read and thinking, oh man, how are they going to take this? And you definitely did that, which surprised me. No, it didn't surprise me that you did that, but it surprised me a little bit because you're still a very active musician with a lot of these people. So talk a little bit about the apprehension, if any, you might have had for telling some of these stories, knowing that they don't put everybody in the best light.
Well, I guess you're alluding to the members in my band, right?
Well, you members of your band, there was the kind of one that's jumped out at me was actually Max Norman. Was when you were talking about when Max came down and you guys went partying and hooked up with some chicks and then he passed on you anyway, on producing your music. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's look, me and Max are cool. I mean, we were friends. I wasn't I don't see how that really put him in a bad light. It's just the story. We hung out, the version we have of Little Susie really should be credited to Max Norman because he produced that version. That he worked with Tesla on the version you hear on Mechanical Resonance. That arrangement, that's Max's arrangement and his treatment. What I was trying to convey was that, a lot of producers passed on us.
Right.
And as Max did as well, but we had a good time with Max and I'm friends with him on Facebook and we're fine. I wasn't really I didn't really throw him under the bus or anything unless I told him people he liked chicks, and I don't think he'd mind that.
No, it just surprised, I mean, I guess for me it was that thing of, you never know where people are at in their life. Maybe he's got a jealous wife.
Look, let me just put it out there like this. If you're going to do a book, as you can try to make yourself look all, pretty and make everything look pretty, or and feed people a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
Or you can just be honest about, what it is and the story you're trying to tell. And, look, that's how it went down.
Sure.
I mean, someone said, oh, you said something about Jeff, 30 years ago, or Troy or me and Frank or whatever. But you got to remember that was 30 years ago. I'm
Sure.
telling a story what happened 30 years ago. That doesn't mean that we're the same people we are today
Sure.
and that we're still carrying on and doing that shit. I was just telling, I'm just saying, look, there was a time, we were fucked up.
Right.
And the people's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You guys did drugs? Well, of course we did. Of course we drank. We're fucking human, and we had
Right.
sex, and and we ate. We even ate Taco Bell.
Right.
But the thing of it is you put it out there, and you write this book, and it's a story of my life, and
Mhm.
Tesla's a big part of my life. But I also talk about when I was a kid working at McDonald's, and
Right.
high school, and my first anxiety attack I ever had before I even knew about Tesla, or hadn't even met Frank Hannon. So it's the whole story. But in answer to your question, yeah, you do get a little nervous. Like, man, I hope this doesn't piss my brother off, or
Right.
I hope Troy doesn't get mad. Because I tell people that me and him used to argue and butt heads a lot. But today we're in a great place, me and him.
Sure.
It just took a while to get there.
Sure, definitely. Did you before you actually published, did you float the stuff that you felt might ruffle feathers past the guys and say, "Hey, this is what I'm writing. Is that cool?" Or
Well, it's funny because Jeff told me, write whatever you want. It's all true.
okay,
Frank, you know, was interviewed in the initial beginning by, when we were putting the book together, his take on me. There was one thing I ran by Frank, and he was fine with it, so I left it in the book. Because I didn't, it was about some of the drug things we did, and I didn't
sure,
know if he wanted his kids to read it. And he's like, "Hey, man, they're adults, man."
right,
So he was fine. Troy, I didn't run anything by. He didn't ask. I didn't, divulge. But there was nothing in there I thought that was out of order. Dave Rude, no. Tommy Skeel, I don't talk to,
no,
so I certainly didn't run anything by him.
right,
Uh, you know,
yeah. So there you go, and obviously that makes sense. I mean,
I mean, my family, no, they're all right. They know me. They've
sure,
known me for 58 years. They know how I am.
sure,
So,
yep,
my wife, she's cool. My first wife, Sandy, and me, we're cool. So it's no, I pretty much I kind of knew, and I have my lawyer, and she's like, look, you can't say this or you can't say that. I mean, you got to be careful here. So we went through it, and so did Post Hill. Post Hill
mhm,
goes through it too. They don't want to be liable for something.
sure.
Well, no.
Sure, and one of the unique things I think about the book compared to other rock memoirs that I've read is that you keep it surprisingly focused on yourself, even when you're telling stories that involve everybody else. You really do keep it focused on yourself, which is doesn't happen a lot. A lot of times when people tell stories that are a little bit shaky, they kind of they were doing it to the story where you
Right, you try to lighten the load. It's like, look, I'm quite honest. It's like, look, I was a dope fiend as well as anyone else was.
sure
I was bulimic. I was, overindulgent. I was, a drunk bastard like anyone. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't try to give myself any breaks here.
right
Try to candy coat it. Try to make myself look good. If anything, I say, look, I'm just like you.
mm-hmm sure
I suffer from the same shit, insecurities and wants and needs and everything that any other person does.
right Definitely. Did you find it cathartic to put it out there? I know I did personally. I wrote one about my divorce in real time, so that was a real fun read. But when I was done, I felt okay. And I
Yeah,
did
I
you feel
think
that way?
it was therapeutic. Absolutely. I mean, I talk about Dr. Hirschkopf, my psychiatrist,
Hmm.
um, saying to me 30 years ago, one day you should write a book because it will help you, let go of some of this shit you hang on to. And he was right. I just didn't, I wasn't prepared to write a book 30 years ago. There wasn't much of the story there yet.
Sure.
So I just felt at this point in my life, I'm getting close to 60, that okay, well, maybe now's the time to actually say, well, look, here it is. The band's been together for 35 years, and I'm going into my sixth decade soon, so
Right.
it just seemed like the right time to put it out there. And it is therapeutic, and talking with people like yourself, about the book is therapeutic as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing, Brian, that really jumped out at me, and I'll be honest, it surprised, probably the most surprising thing of the 2/3 of the book that I've read to this point, was that it comes off like you don't think of yourself as anything more than a competent bassist. You don't think it really came off. You said it a couple times, a couple different ways in the
Well,
book.
I don't think I'm a great bass guitar player.
And that surprises me as a guy that's played bass guitar in a platinum selling band for 4 decades. That you don't think you're very good. That's very surprising.
I play the bass. I'm not a bass player.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not that precious about it. I mean, look, I played in Tesla, my whole life. I jammed with Jimmy Page one time. I'm okay. I don't think when they list the 100 best bass players in rock, my name's going to be anywhere near it. So
Sure.
and I'm fine with it. It's not that big a deal to me. I'd rather have someone come up to me and say, "Hey, I really like that song you wrote or something." You know what I mean? That's more rewarding to me than because the song will stick with them forever.
Right.
Like Let It Be is stuck with me since I was a child.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that I'm more precious about than my bass playing. But I'm adequate. I mean, I'm certainly not a virtuoso. I mean, Frank Hannon is an amazing musician.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm not an amazing musician. I'm kind of like a workhorse. I just, I work at it, and I've gotten better over the years. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not going to be stupid about it and say I suck. I don't suck,
Right.
but other people have said I sucked. Old band member of mine had no problem trying to say I suck in the press, but
Right.
that's okay. He's entitled to his opinion. Um, uh, but no, I mean, I'm just your average bass player.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Um,
it's okay, man.
yeah, yeah. I don't
Now,
agree.
if you want to mix a record or something, I'll take the mix off challenge
Sure.
with you, or
Well,
produce a record. I'm more precious about that
well,
really than my bass playing.
sure. I hear you. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I hear you. I mean, there's average bass players out there, and then there's guy. Maybe it's just the music that you guys create in general. You feed it what it needs.
Well, I do that, and I do have the common sense to know when to get out of the way.
Sure.
In a band like Tesla, it's not what you play, for the bass player. It's getting out of the way because you got two guitar players wailing, and Troy plays very freely.
Hmm.
So someone's got to keep this solid 2x4 foundation going,
Sure.
and that's my role, and I accept that role. I enjoy it. Um, but I mean, if someone said, "Well, can you go do a bass clinic?" Fuck no.
Right. Makes
You know,
sense.
I
Yeah.
can't go do no bass clinic. You know what I mean? I can't. Could I give a bass lesson? No. It's no, I can't.
Right. But and yet at the same time with Tesla, if all the pieces aren't there, it doesn't work. You know, you've obviously done solos.
Well, I even talk about that in the book.
Right.
I
You did.
say, look, if I was gone, the band would be fine. They'd continue on without me.
Oh.
Um, you know,
See,
because
I don't know with you guys. I don't know with you guys because there's obviously the Bar 7 that was out there and Soul Motor and the various projects, and they just didn't. Without the sum of the parts, it just didn't connect. It's something about when you guys are the true definition of need all the parts together to make it work. And obviously Dave being the exception, but Rude came in and masterfully took Tommy's parts and you guys reworked it a little bit with Dave, but you didn't miss a beat there. But I honestly don't know that it would be the same band if you as a core member or Frank or Jeff left. I don't think you could call it Tesla anymore.
maybe Frank and Jeff, but I think me and Troy. Someone else could play the drums. I mean, look, you've seen it in AC/DC. There were times they didn't have Phil Rudd. As far as me, I mean, someone else could step. I'm not the front man of the band. You know what I mean? I'm not in the front. I mean, at least on stage, my role is more, of the business role and
Sure.
in the back and keeping us together, as a group. I mean, I probably do. I have a lot with keeping us rolling and keeping us a band. So on that aspect, I'm sure I would be missed. But as far as my playing, I don't think it would matter.
Fair
And
enough.
it's okay. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm not trying to get pity or anything.
No.
No. I don't plan on fucking quitting unless
Right.
they fire me after they read this book and throw me out.
Yeah, somehow I don't think that's going to happen. But another thing that really kind of stands out, and your publicist actually made a point to bring up, because I didn't know if I could bring it up or not, but I find it interesting that how much you despise being lumped in with the hair metal bands. And not because I think the music is there. I agree with you. You guys never had a hair metal sound. I do agree with you there. But I'm going to play devil's advocate on that and say that without you guys, if you guys were put into the same bag as like Black Crowes, you might not still be a band because there wouldn't have been the touring, the opportunities to play.
Well, I don't. It's not. I don't know why they said I despise. I don't despise them bands at all. They're actually friends of mine.
Sure.
What I despise is the way that the people, when us bands from the 80s fell out of fashion, the way the people that thought they were hip in the 90s and 2000s thought it was cool to condescendingly call us hair bands.
Okay.
Right. And all I was saying was, well, that's cool, but Tesla's image was way more of an image of the Black Crowes,
Right,
than that of a Motley Crue. Motley Crue were great, looking guys, and they all looked cool, and you wanted to be Nikki Sixx, or Tommy Lee.
right.
And Tesla, you could see Tesla in the grocery store, and you wouldn't know that, with maybe the exception of Jeff Keith, that we were even in a band.
Right.
I mean, we only got one cover our whole career
Really?
of a magazine, and that was Lon Friend at Rip Magazine. Is the only guy that ever gave Tesla the cover. So you look at the 80s and the early 90s and all those millions of records we sold, and we were never on a cover of a magazine.
Huh.
So, the point I make is like, look, you want to lump us into that scene now, but back then we couldn't get on a cover of a magazine.
Right.
We had the number 1 video in 1990 or 91 with Signs.
Right.
And we weren't even asked to come to the VMAs
Jeez.
because we weren't like the kind of band that, you you want to put on your red carpet and take pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point I make. I don't, let me be really clear. I don't want people to think I despise, the hair bands of the 80s, or, and I don't call them that.
Right.
To me, they were our contemporaries. It's the cool hipsters that want to call them hair bands, and like it's a bad thing, almost like making fun of us.
Right.
And that's what I despise.
Right. Makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah.
Brian, you've obviously built yourself. I don't know if it's your career after Tesla, or if it's. I know you're obviously doing it now with J Recorder Studios. Every musician I know has a studio of some sort, even if it's just them doing something in their house. But you've turned yours into an actual business. Talk a little bit about that. What led you to do that? Is that just planning ahead to be smart, or is that just
No, anything. It's like a disease because it just sucks all your money. um, I was always fascinated by the recording process, and I was at pretty much every session the band ever did, and every mix session that we did, and me and Frank, and he's kind of the same way. He's into it as well.
Sure.
So when Tesla broke up and I was trying to get a band like Soul Motor off the ground, I started recording in my house.
Okay.
Right. I had some gear and I set up a room in my house and I started recording. And then I made, that first Soul Motor record that way, and the second Soul Motor record that way. And then from there, I built a studio in back of my house. And, at that point, it's like, I'm going to build a proper studio. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Troy had built the studio first before any of us. He had built a recording studio like in 1988, 89, a small recording studio he had. So then I had this fire, in my old studio.
Right.
And then when it came time to rebuild, it was, either get out of the studio thing or build a state-of-the-art, really badass studio.
Right.
So I chose the latter and built a really state-of-the-art, badass studio in Sacramento, which is where I'm at right now. I'm in my studio today.
Okay.
Because I live in New York, but my studio's here, so I come back and forth now.
Sure.
And I like working with young bands and trying to develop young bands, and the kind of natural progression of once you've been in a band and you're a songwriter and you call yourself a producer. I mean, if you're going to produce somebody, you better be able to write songs and
sure
and play an instrument, and you can't just be an engineer. That's not, that's that you're an engineer. You're not a producer. I'm a producer.
Right.
I can do it all. I do all three of them. I can engineer, I can mix, I can produce. I have a record label. I have a management company.
Right.
So I'm pretty like invested in the whole business of music.
Right.
And that's why I did it.
Sure. Did you ever consider partnering that business with Frank Hannon, because he's obviously well into that as well? He's every other week I get, well, here's another band produced by Frank Hannon, or
no, and only because we're already partnered up in Tesla.
Right.
And that's enough. You know what I mean? Us doing his thing and me doing my thing, and him doing Frank Hannon solo, records, and me doing Soul Motor records and stuff. That's our release. That's
okay.
That's our time away from Tesla,
Right.
which keeps it healthy in Tesla.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So no, but he's great at it. I like some of the stuff he's doing. A lot of it.
Definitely.
Frank's a very talented guy.
He definitely is. Brian, last question, man. Obviously, the pandemic's still going on. No real end date in sight. Tesla, one of those bands that, reliably you can see every single year. And this is the first year I don't think many people have gotten to. What's it look like going forward? Is there any plan going forward? Or are you guys like everybody else, or like most people, where you really have to just kind of sit back and wait and see what happens?
Well, I mean, as soon as they say we can play concerts and promoters put on concerts, we'll go back and play.
Okay.
But we're at the mercy of everyone else. I mean, we're sitting here today. We don't even know who the president is.
Right. Good point.
So, and then you got this Corona thing, which I think, will go hand in hand. So I think hopefully I would like to hope that, by the summer, bands can start playing again and bringing concerts back to the people.
No question, man. Well, certainly people will be out to see Tesla whenever Tesla does hit the stage again. And for now, Brian, the book that everybody needs to pick up, it's a fascinating read. It's called Son of a Milkman, My Crazy Life with Tesla. It's Brian Wheaton. Brian, thanks so much for coming on to Aftershocks, man.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me, buddy.
All right, Brian.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe to everything that we do, not only us, but the classic metal shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there, one site, get 4 great shows, never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out, cmspn.com, cmspn.com, cmspn.com. Until next time, folks.